sounds like a distant lullaby, a faint thread of warmth stitched into an endless white canvas. If this kind of gentle, unhurried science helps you relax, you can like this video and subscribe softly now. And there's a playlist in the description that you can loop as you drift. What city country are you watching from right now? You find yourself standing calmly at the edge of an under-ice drilling site on the Antarctic plateau. The air is dry and clean, lightly scented with cold and a trace of snow, the kind that feels powder fine against your cheeks. There is no rush here, only a careful patience that has taken decades to refine. In the middle distance, a modest array of tents and containers rests on the ice, their sides softened by drifted snow. A neat pathway of packed snow leads to a tall, calm structure, the drill tower. It leans into the sky with a quiet confidence, like a pencil poised above a page that will take a very long time to fill. The sun circles low and steady, not setting, not rising, just brushing the horizon with the same pale gold hour after hour. The rhythm of the work is unhurried. The gentle rhythm continues. Here, far beneath your boots, a lake lies tucked under kilometers of ice. It has been sealed away for a very long time, perhaps thousands of years for some lakes, perhaps far longer for others. The weight of the ice above pressurizes and insulates, while a slow heat from the Earth's interior, quiet and steady, keeps a thin boundary of water liquid, allowing a secret world to persist in darkness. The lake is not just still, it is serene. It has its own slow breathing, a tiny exchange through geological cracks, a careful balancing act of melt and freeze, of pressure and time. Above it all, people move with deliberate care, bringing a methodical, almost meditative curiosity to a place where any hurried motion would feel out of place. You step, in your imagination, into the clean tent next to the drilling tower. The air inside is warmer, hushed by filters that gently whir, pulling particles from the atmosphere the way a winter scarf catches snow. The light is diffuse, as if even the lamps agreed to meet the day at a whisper. Instruments sit neatly arranged, wrapped in coverings that keep them pristine. A coil of hose winds up onto a spool, each layer neatly laid upon the last, a tidy spiral that looks almost like a sleeping serpent, except that it is patient plastic and stainless steel, designed to guide hot, purified water down into the ice. Everything here is about cleanliness, about a sterile promise. The tools are washed and baked, wiped and rinsed with solutions that leave no memory behind. The way a calm wind smooths, snow drifts into gentle curves. Outside, the drill team moves with a practiced calm. Their suits rustle softly, their boots leave rounded prints that fill with the faint sparkle of rime. A kettle of meltwater steams, not for tea, but to feed the system that will melt the borehole through the ice above the lake. The water that goes down is filtered through fine membranes and bathed in ultraviolet light, then warmed to glide through the ice, leaving a narrow, clean channel. is done, like the calm surface of a pond sealing after a pebble gently sinks. The gentle rhythm continues. In the distance, beyond the clean tent walls, the horizon is unbroken. Subtle ridges of snow trace the path of old winds. The sky is pale, the kind of blue that seems to breathe slowly. You can imagine the layers beneath your feet, the upper snow packed into fern, the fern settling into blue ice, and then down, deeper than most minds want to imagine without a chair, into ice so compact it looks like stone when chipped. In that ice are stories of storms and stillness, of seasons that never touched the lake's dark water. These layers capture bubbles of ancient air, dust from distant deserts, and the weight of time itself, quietly, cleanly, without drama, the way a sleeping child holds a blanket edge between two fingers. The drilling begins before your thoughts, you notice, have formed a complete circle. The hose spools out with a soft, measured turn, and water slips downward through the borehole, making a column of warmth in a world of cold. The crew watches screens that show depth, temperature, flow rate, all steady lines with no appetite for sharp moves. The way they speak to each other is gentle, like careful notes in a music rehearsal where the piece is familiar and well loved. Nobody forces the pace. The descent is slow by design, to keep the borehole narrow and clean, to prevent fluttering fragments of ice from floating out and complicating a soft task. The water that returns is captured and filtered again, a closed loop of warmth that leaves only a smooth-walled shaft behind. It feels almost like brushing your hand along polished glass, except that it is kilometers of ice, and the hand is a ribbon of water. As you breathe through your nose, you imagine the coolness settling steadily in your chest. The breath is even. The drill continues. Beneath, the Antarctic lake waits in its quiet pocket. Some lakes here are small and transient, their boundaries like a sigh between glaciers, filling and emptying over seasons you cannot see. Others are vast, with shorelines marked only by bedrock contours and the slow creep of ice overhead, each curve and sill shaped by the patient tools of pressure and frost. The water is fresh, though sometimes touched by salts leached from rock, and the temperature is always close to the freezing point, softened only by pressure and the hidden warmth below. It is a reminder that in cold places, life moves at a smaller scale, with tighter budgets and longer plans. When the borehole is young, the drill sits nearby, resting on wide skis to spread its weight. The camp is designed to touch lightly, to leave few traces. Fuel is stored with care, each drum sealed and checked. Waste is contained and packed out, as if the field team were visiting a friend's neat kitchen and resolved to leave no crumb behind. The entire effort is an exercise in restraint, the science equivalent of a slow, quiet conversation where silence does most of the work. The gentle rhythm continues. You imagine how the lake first formed. Snow falls over centuries, and then for more centuries, and then for so long that the words lose their edges. The weight grows. ice sheet, pressure melts ice, even where the air above would keep it frozen. Geothermal heat, tiny, steady, patient, adds a thin thread of warmth. Water begins to flow in channels along the bedrock, drifting into hollows carved by old valleys or smoothed by long-vanished mountains. Some of these hollows collect enough water to become lakes. Others see water pass through, refreshing but not staying, like a visitor who admires a view and walks on, leaving only a gentle footprint in the silt. Some lakes link to neighbors through slow conduits, a quiet network of pathways that fill and drain over the years. From space, scientists have watched this rhythm by tracking tiny rises and falls of the ice surface, which flexes like the lid of a lidded jar, breathing very slowly. The field team knows this background, not as a flashy tale, but as a context, the way a reader knows the shape of a book by hefting it. They drill, lowering the hose, melting down, hundreds then thousands of meters. The water is kept sterile by careful filters and ultraviolet light. Samples are collected in specially designed containers, each with a careful label and a disciplined path to the lab. Tools are changed when they leave the water and enter the tent, wrapped and unwrapped like fine glassware in a quiet kitchen. Gloves are changed often. A logbook sits open where a pencil waits. Each entry is neat and spare. The date, the time, the depth, the temperature, the conductivity, the flow. The gentle rhythm continues. When the borehole finally reaches the boundary, the team pauses. They check numbers, listen to the hush inside the tent, and stop the pump. The last meters can feel long, especially after months of preparation and days of descent. There is no cheering here, only a slow exhale, and perhaps a small nod, because the goal is not to break in, but to touch lightly and then withdraw. A tool built to collect water is lowered, its surface is cleaned to a shine you can imagine but not see, because even light is as soft as breath here. It hangs in the dim cylinder of melted ice and waits. Pressure equalizes. A valve opens in a quiet click. Water from the lake, filtered by time and rock and ice, moves into the sampler. It is not a gush, it is a measured welcome. When the sampler returns to the surface, it passes into a clean space where people move with deliberate calm, their gloved hands confident, their voices low. A small volume is transferred to sterile bottles, and filters are used to catch the tiniest passengers in that water, the way lace catches sparkles of light on a calm day. You picture a small on-ice lab. It is warm enough to work without shivering, but cool enough to keep everything stable. A laminar flow hood sends a gentle sheet of filtered air over the work surface. Clear bottles sit in neat rows, labelled with fine handwriting that keeps its shape even when the wrist is tired. Pipettes click softly. A sample is filtered, and the membrane is folded and same position as if time were practicing a loop. You stroll, in your mind, along the flagged path that marks the safe route between tents. The flags flutter in a breeze that never seems to rise above a whisper. Your boots compress the snow with a soft squeak. The air is bright and clean. Far off, the drill tower gleams a little, each surface catching a slant of sunlight like a thin ribbon placed carefully along a gift. This is not an ordinary place, but it is a place that can feel ordinary if you've been here for a while. The way any quiet room grows familiar when you sit in it long enough, noticing the same details over and over until they become soothing. In the evenings, such as they are under the near constant light, the team eats simply. A pot of soup steams, and there is bread, and the sound of cutlery against bowls is soft and home-like. Someone notes the day's progress without urgency. Someone else looks at the line of plotted depths and nods. There is a calm satisfaction in knowing that a plan carried across ocean and ice works as planned. This satisfaction is not energetic. It is a small ember of contentment that glows steadily in the center of the chest. After dinner, boots are set near heaters, gloves are hung to dry, and data are backed up twice, then checked again. The generator hums. The light dims just a fraction. The gentle rhythm continues. In the long view, Antarctic subglacial lakes are part of a story of water and ice that spans entire continents. Decades ago, scientists mapped the surface with radar, and the echoes revealed flat regions beneath the ice, each one a lens of liquid that reflected the signal like a smooth table. Later, satellites measured tiny changes in elevation, revealing that some lakes fill slowly and then drain through unseen channels, then refill again. It was a gentle pulse, a place breathing under ice. The discovery did not change the quiet at the surface. It changed our sense of time. Things move, even when they appear still. In this environment, stillness is the sum of many slow motions that cancel and agree to a truce. You might think of Lake Vostok, a large and deep body of water beneath almost 4 kilometers of ice, famous because of its size and its long isolation. You might recall other names: Ellsworth, Whillans, Mercer, each a place where teams have approached in different ways, with hot water drilling or specialized coring, always with an emphasis on cleanliness and caution. Some efforts met the lake and found a path forward. Some paused, learned, and returned later, wiser and gentler. In all cases, the common thread has been respect. Respect for the environment, for the unknown communities that might live in it, for the idea that sampling is a privilege that comes with strict conditions. The people here move slowly because the work asks for slowness, like reading a fragile document with gloves on, turning each page with 2 fingers, and patience. In your mind's ear, you hear the soft hiss of steam, the whir of a pump, and the emptiness between those sounds that makes them stand out. The work continues at a measured pace. On the next day, a thin core of refrozen lake water is retrieved from the borehole walls, water that touched the lake and then was lifted by pressure pressure to freeze in the shaft, a tiny messenger from the dark. It is cut and wrapped and stored. Another day yields a small sample of sediments from the lake bed that rose into the tool like a spoonful of twilight. The grains are fine, whispering of rock ground by ice, of minerals that might offer energy to microbes who learned long ago to eat without sunlight. In the lab, months from now, these grains will tell stories through their chemistry. A little iron here, a little sulfur there, perhaps traces of organic matter that suggest slow cycles of growth and decay. The gentle rhythm continues. At this scale, microbes are the main characters, though they are never loud. In many such lakes, life, if it is there, exists on budgets so tight that every molecule counts. Without sunlight to spark photosynthesis, energy must come from chemical gradients. The tiny differences between reduced and oxidized forms of elements like iron, sulfur, nitrogen, or hydrogen. A bacterium might sit next to a mineral grain and coax electrons across a membrane, increment by increment, turning a meager flow into just enough ATP to repair a cell wall or replicate once in a very long while. Generations could pass like whispers. Communities might form on a film barely thicker than a fog. With nothing to look at, the imagination paints a picture of small, pale colonies clinging to sediment grains, exchanging signals that move as slowly as a drifting snowflake settles. These cells are careful. They waste nothing. They embody patience. The gentle rhythm continues. When samples return to a home laboratory, the same caution remains. Tubes are opened in clean hoods. Filters are cut, placed into solutions, and extracted with reagents that release DNA in strands felt only by the instruments that read them. Sequencing runs quietly in the background, and the results appear as lines on screens, strings of letters that echo old alphabets. Patterns emerge slowly, like stars one by one in a twilight sky. Hints point to organisms adapted to cold, to pressure, to darkness. Some may match known lineages, others may be new or rare variations, careful cousins of microbes found in deep oceans or beneath glaciers elsewhere. The deeper satisfaction here is not an announcement, but an understanding that life, in its quiet way, finds niches in almost any gradient, that patience is a strategy as much as speed, and that the sterile patience of centuries can hold a small but persistent community that is both fragile and resilient. Back at the camp, you imagine a field notebook lying open on a small table. A page is filled with neat lines, depths, temperatures, flow rates, times, sample IDs. Each line is a small gesture toward the future, a way of promising that when someone reads this later, they will understand what happened and when. The pencil sits on the spiral binding. A mug, warm at the hands, leaves a faint circle on a page that will be copied before it fades. The mug smells faintly of tea. The steam curls, then vanishes into the filtered air. The generator hums. A person checks the tension on the hose out of habit. Another glances at the weather display. There is always weather here, but it is often not dramatic. it likes, a sky that looks the same from 1 hour to the next. This sameness is a friend in a place where plants prefer to settle and stay. Imagine then the delicate dance of contamination control. Every surface that will touch the water is washed with alcohols or oxidants that leave nothing living behind. Metal parts are heated or soaked, then rinsed with ultra-clean water that has been filtered to remove even the smallest cells. The drill water passes through a series of filters that step down from micron to submicron, like a river flowing through finer and finer sieves. Ultraviolet lamps hum invisibly, scattering the plans of any wandering microbe. Even the air inside the clean tent is guided to move in a way that carries particles away from the work surface. People move slowly because brisk motions stir eddies. Doors are opened carefully. Tools are passed hand to hand in a choreography that becomes second nature. The gentle rhythm continues. Years, too, move slowly in this line of inquiry. Designing, 1 year. Testing, another. Shipping, months. Waiting for a weather window, a season. Travelling to the site over ice or by aircraft that put down on endless runways traced by flags, days that feel longer because there is little to look at and much to think about. Then the work, weeks of drilling, punctuated by daily repetition. The payoff of a sample is small and dense, like a spoonful of precise words that took a lifetime to write. Then the return, packing, manifesting, loading. The ship moves through sea ice with a slow, patient insistence, each crack sounding distant, like tapping on glass a few rooms away. The samples are kept cold, monitored, and then delivered to freezers that hum with the same steady tone you heard on the ice. This is not a story of crowds and applause. It is the story of a pond surface smoothing after a small pebble, and the satisfaction of watching the last ripple disappear. You feel how your shoulders have lowered, how the act of imagining this place has softened them. The Antarctic plateau, like a calm breath, asks little of you, but attention. You give it gently, and it returns the gift with a sense that time can be longer than a day, a week, even a lifetime. The lake under the ice has waited far longer than any of us. It is patient because it has to be. The field team chooses patience because it serves the place and the purpose. In the end, both forms of patience meet in the borehole and shake hands. The gentle rhythm continues. On another day, in your mind's soft tour, a sensor is lowered into the borehole to measure the water's properties: temperature to a fraction of a degree, salinity to a fraction of a micromole, pressure as a calm number that confirms what was expected. The instrument packages are wrapped in sterile covers that are removed at the last moment. There is a click, a line of data begins to grow, and someone watches for a small plateau on the screen that says, simply, you have arrived at the water column. A second sensor dips into the lake for just enough moments to read, then rises back to the clean air. The instrument is rinsed with sterile water, dried and wrapped in clean foil. It is a gentle ritual. It takes as long as it takes. rivers and valleys. Now those old contours guide modern water that never sees the sky. When water flows into the lake, it may seep along the bottom slowly, curling past rocks that have not been touched by air since long before any memory. As it passes, it meets edges between minerals. In those edges, sometimes a gentle chemistry takes place. A ferrous iron gives up an electron. A molecule of sulfate takes it in. Small changes, but they add up to something useful for microbes that respond to the smallest invitations. In darkness, simplicity becomes beautiful. The gentle rhythm continues. At the center of the camp, a clock is taped to a wall. It is only a reference, because time here has an elastic quality. People sleep in shifts to keep the drill watched. A log entry is made at certain times because records need anchors, but people are careful not to speak in terms of rushing or deadlines. For the lake, deadlines do not exist. The bedrock under the water smiles at such words, if rock could be said to smile. The borehole moves down at a rate that depends on the balance between hot water and cold ice, between flow and return, between pipe insulation and the many tiny losses that only become visible over hours. The team leans into the math gently, checks the numbers, and turns a knob by a fraction to make an invisible line sit where it should. It is a conversation with a very quiet partner. The calm extends even to the transport of knowledge. When results are shared, they arrive as papers and presentations that pass through review like a clean borehole through ice. Comments last months. Revisions are small and often elegant. The world beyond may look for headlines, but the people who drill under ice and the people who read these results know to accept a different kind of satisfaction. A lake revealed, a sample genuine, a sequence that suggests an old metabolic strategy in a modern, hidden place. The gentle rhythm continues. At the midpoint of this slow journey, if you are still here with me, you can take a peaceful moment to check in. Still awake, comment the secret word, nebula, and now breathe again and let the soft hum of the drill carry you forward. There is a memory among those who study under ice lakes of earlier approaches that have grown gentler over time. Decades ago, different fluids were used to keep boreholes from closing, and those methods taught lessons, some of them difficult. More recent efforts choose warm water and meticulous sterilization, a way of stepping softly and leaving less behind. Engineers designed valves that isolate the lake water from any remnant of drilling fluid, and procedures that ensure the borehole closes naturally, refreezing slowly, sealing the connection in hours or days until what remains is a slender line in ice, then a blur, then nothing at all. Many of these differences are both technical and philosophical. They are expressions of restraint, of a preference for smaller footprints and greater certainty that the lake, with its own quiet residence, is protected from our curiosity, even as we learn from it. You imagine now the life of a single cell in that lake. It drifts along a grain of sand, perhaps its wall thickened against pressure that would startle other organisms. It senses a chemical gradient, not as a slope, centuries. It is, in its way, industrious and content. The gentle rhythm continues. Some lakes are shallow and lie beneath fast-moving ice near the coast. Others sit deep beneath an inland plateau, where the ice presses down in a serene weight that feels geological in scale. In all of these places, sediments fall out of the water column at a rate so slow that each grain is like a second in a very long hour. Over time, thin layers build, each a few grains thick. In those layers, tiny fossils may lie, the remains of microorganisms, the faint traces of debris pushed in by long-lost flows. These layers become a record, like rings in a tree, but quieter. If a core is lifted from such sediments, it will be a thin cylinder of secrets. Scientists understand that to read it, they must approach it the way one opens an old fragile book, gently, with light, with clean hands, and with an understanding that some pages may never show their content fully. That is accepted. The gentle rhythm continues. In the sky, there are days when subtle clouds form, thin and high like gauze. They change the blue just enough to suggest that the world is still shifting. Even here, the drill carries on. The flow rate is adjusted for a moment, then let be, like smoothing a wrinkle in a blanket, and then stepping back. The team stands sometimes looking in silence at the borehole casing, where steam gathers and curls away. They do not look as if they expect anything to happen quickly. Their stillness is an equal and opposite moment to the slow motion beneath their boots. You walk, in your mind, to the edge of the camp, where a weather station ticks. It measures wind, temperature, humidity, pressure. Its little cup anemometer turns gently when the breeze lifts. Its mast is thin. Cables run from it in neat lines. The numbers it sends are small, plain, without adjectives. They add up to a portrait of a day that might seem uneventful to someone used to busier climates. But in the record, they are everything. They tell you that nothing pushed too hard today, that the air is as it has been, that the snow will stay, that the borehole will remain open just as planned. The gentle rhythm continues. When the final samples are packed, there is no rush to leave. The borehole is allowed to begin its slow closure, the water that melted the hole becoming ice again as heat leaks away into the vast cold. It happens from the sides inward, like freezing a cup of water outdoors and watching the rim thicken until it meets at the center. The team monitors it without fret. They begin to take down the tent in careful steps, rolling up the sides and then the roof, cleaning each component as they store it, as if returning borrowed things and wanting to come back to a welcome. The drill hose winds back onto the spool with the same neat spiral it had at the start. The tower lowers. The skis rock gently as a breeze passes. The generator quiets, but not until the last tool is checked and put away. The footprints between tents are smoothed with a shovel. The flags are removed, leaving the snow unmarked. The gentle rhythm continues. In another place on the ice sheet, perhaps years later, a new team will place a similar camp and repeat these steps. They will drill again with patience. They will sample again with care. small paragraph about a specific organism that oxidizes ammonium or reduces sulfate at low temperatures. In the dark, you might remember this camp and this lake. You might picture a thin column of water beneath kilometers of ice, so clean because it has been sealed for an age, and because the people who visited were careful. The resources in such a lake are modest. The lives there are modest. But modesty, in this context, is richness. It is the kind of richness that lets persistence win where exuberance would fail. The sterile patience of centuries has not been sterile in the sense of lifeless. It has been sterile in the sense of a room prepared for a delicate conversation, one voice at a time, one sentence at a time, no shouting, no rush. The gentle rhythm continues. Imagine for a moment yourself at the camp's edge again, your breath steady, your shoulders soft, your hands warm in your gloves. You look out at a horizon that is always the same. The sameness is not boring, it is generous. It means you can lean your thoughts onto it and not have them tip over. Under your boots, thick ice that holds, and beneath that, a lake that turns over on timescales so slow that words like afternoon have no place there. The sky is quiet, the light is even. You feel the comfort of continuity, that there is always something of the same side as peace to rest on. The people who do this work carry it in their bones, the slow pace and the sense that what matters will still matter tomorrow. They do not have to hurry because their partners in the lake do not hurry. The ice does not hurry. The instruments do not hurry. And the data, when it arrives, is in no hurry to impress. It just sits, like a bowl of clear water, waiting for you to look in and see something simple and true. Inside that bowl, a reflection forms. It might be your face, it might be a thought, it might be an idea about patience. If you tune your imagination one notch further into the technical, you can picture the details of the drill, the nozzle that shapes the hot water into a precise jet, the flow meters that tell you if the warm ribbon is slipping through the ice as intended, the insulated hose designed to minimize heat loss, the return loop that captures meltwater and sends it through filters that step down in pore size until a bacterium has nowhere to hide. There are ultraviolet lamps in the circuit and pasteurization units that keep the water's history clean. There are pressure sensors so delicate that they can feel a change of a few centimeters in the water column. Everything is built not to resist the ice, but to be a guest within it. The samples, too, are guided gently through a chain of custody that respects both their scarcity and their vulnerability. A bottle is labelled at the moment of filling, then bagged, then placed in a second bag with a clean inner face. A barcode is scanned, a log entry is made. The bottle goes into a rack that fits perfectly into a cooler that is pre-cooled to a specific temperature, which is checked by a probe. The cooler is sealed and placed into a freezer. The freezer is monitored. The entire path is recorded in duplicate. Nothing is left to memory, because memory is human, and the lake is patient but precise. In the lab, boisterous winds, desperate survival. There are days like that, certainly, when storms speak in stronger voices. But most days, especially in summer, if you are prepared and careful, are made of routines that look like kindness. The camp hums, the schedule is steady, the tasks are clear, the environment rewards patience with calm, the drill rewards attention with progress. Even the light, in its constant arc, rewards constancy by staying with you always. The most intense sensations here are often the quiet ones, the sudden stop of the wind when it shifts direction, the faint crunch of frost that forms at the edge of a tent flap, the soft pop a soap bubble might make if one were blown in this cold air. Imagined, of course, because no one would waste water on such a thing out here. You might think of the phrase, sterile patience of centuries, which sounds almost like a paradox if considered in a loud room. Sterile usually means empty, but here it means prepared, protected, respectful. Patience is a choice and a condition. The centuries belong to the lake and the ice, but as you linger in this place, they lend you their rhythm. Hours seem to join into a strand without knots. Nights do not stand apart. Days do not insist on their uniqueness. Everything flows into an even line that carries the mind along. It is forgiving. If your thoughts wander, they return on their own. If they linger on one detail, the curve of a hose on the snow, a bead of water on a valve, the way steam curls and vanishes, you can let them rest there as long as they like. Under the ice, sediments remember. Above the ice, the air forgets quickly, because wind is a good editor. Between, the borehole is a translator. It speaks briefly and then falls silent. This is the right proportion, a gentle connection made and unmade without fuss. Such restraint is not glamorous, but it suits the subject. It makes sense when you think about a lake in darkness and a team in the light, both committed to the same tempo. The gentle rhythm continues. When the last container is sealed and the ski planes return to lift the team away, the site becomes very quiet. The tracks will fill, the hole will seal, the place will become, to any later passerby, just another calm span of ice, indistinguishable from the rest. That is the point. The work will continue elsewhere, on screens, in labs, in shared documents that travel invisibly and slowly move from draft to final. And even then, the pace remains easy. There is no rush to publish, because the lake will not go anywhere, and the idea that patience might lead to better answers than speed has a good home here. You return now, gently, from this imagining. Your breathing is deep and regular. The soft call at the start for a like and a subscribe still stands if you haven't done it yet, only if it feels right for you. And the playlist is there if you'd like to float on into another quiet topic without stirring. You can let your eyes rest and your thoughts drift like snowflakes that never quite land. You are safe right where you are. You can feel warmth in your hands and an easy heaviness in your limbs. The drill hum fades, the tents are tidied, the lake sleeps on, the gentle rhythm continues. As you settle, remember that the world includes places where nothing hurries and everything nevertheless quiet journey. If this helped you rest, a soft like and a gentle subscribe